Hey, this is Steve from HomeStrong Fitness. Today I'm going to do a quick video for you on what to expect when you get your HomeStrong system, as well as an installation video. This is what the package is going to look like when you receive it. Inside is going to have everything that you need. You're going to have 2 sets of resistance bands, 2 handles, 2 ankle straps, 2 carabiners, a bolts kit, as well as some various caps that you're going to have to put in along the way of the installation. You'll also receive your top brackets, one for the left, one for the right. And then you'll also have your vertical components, as well as your resistance bar that you'll use for all your exercises. I'm going to pause the video here, get this all unboxed, and then we'll go into the installation. Okay, now we're going to go through the tools that we're going to need to do the installation. A few basic hand tools is all it really takes, but I'll give you the recommended set that I like to use. A ratchet with a 9/16 inch socket, an extension comes in handy, a 9/16 inch box end wrench, a crescent wrench, a 1/4 inch drill bit. I also like to have a 3/8 inch drill bit, and I'll get into that during the installation. A really good stud finder. The better quality you get, the more accurate you're going to be. I feel it is super accurate to get good stud locations so that the bolts go in right where you want them. Don't miss the stud. Make the unit as secure as possible. After all, you're going to be pulling a lot of resistance and weight on that, so you want it installed really well. A couple of pins, pencils, tape measure. I also like to have, with my drill, this extension that you can put your ratchet end on. That really speeds up, saves the wrist. I like using those a lot. Also, obviously, you're going to use a drill with the drill bits. One other item, in case you elect to do the type of installation that we're going to do here in the studio today, this is a cutting tool that will help you cut the baseboard. Cutting the baseboard is something that's not necessary at all. But on certain installations, as you'll see that we have a higher baseboard in the studio, I think that that's going to be really nice to do. It's going to get the lowest point of attachment as close to the ground as possible, make some of the exercises just that much better. A straight edge. It's nice to have a straight edge that is also a level, where you can check your straightness of the lines that we're going to draw. And really, that's about it. So from there, I'm going to do a couple of things just before the video, jump back into it and tell you what I've done to get ready for the installation. Okay, now we've selected the wall that we want to install the HomeStrong system on, and there's a couple of things to look out for when you're installing these on most modern houses. This installation is going for a standard stud drywall type configuration home installation. If you're in an office with steel studs or you have a masonry wall, there are some special installation details that you're going to need to reach out to us for. So feel free to reach out and we'll give you all the download on how to do that. But this is going to be a standard home installation, once again, drywall and studs. So when you select the walls, you're going to have to take your stud finder, excuse me here, take your stud finder and go across the wall and find those stud locations. As you can see here, I've done some pre-marking on our studs. You kind of find one side of the stud, we'll find the middle, and then the other side. Check it a couple of times, make sure your mark is nice and centered in that stud. I like to do that a few places along the wall. High, low, really low, and then also at the very top. So the HomeStrong system is 7 feet tall to the top of the bar. So one of the things that I do is I mark that 7 foot mark. I take and find a good true center of the stud above that 7 foot mark. This is going to be imperative because it's going to be one of the spots that we do this next step. And something that I didn't mention in the materials list that you're going to need, I like to have a push pin and a piece of string and some sort of weight. I just use the washers that came with the system, or you can get those of you know what a plumb bob is from Home Depot. Take that center stud mark, put that push pin in it, then let that line find its horizontal center. You're going to see that for the most part, these line up. Sorry about the shadows from the lights that we have, but as you see, if you push that line down, pretty much all of those line up. One of the other things that I'm doing here is I'm marking the center line of that stud on our baseboard because I'm going to cut that here in a little bit. Okay, and a couple of other things to keep in mind for your home installations. There's typically two different spacing scenarios that you're going to run into on home installations, depending on if it is a non-structural wall or if it's a structural support wall. It just happens to be in this studio office that we have here. We have both types, so I can show you what we're talking about. HomeStrong's designed to go on either. The non-structural walls typically have studs 24 inches on center, so that's going to make the two vertical components 48 inches apart. Or if you are on a structural wall, which works great as well, most of the HomeStrong systems that we've had in the past are on structural walls. Those are 16 inches on center, so the verticals are going to be 32 inches apart. Depending on the generation of HomeStrong that you get, you're going to have a bar that's going to work with either. There's very few of the Gen 1s out there that have the shorter bar that are specifically designed for the 32s. So what you'll see is if you are checking your stud locations, you come across, locate the one that we just found, keep coming across, you're going to hit 24 inches. 24 inches further from that, you're going to hit the one that's going to be for the alternate vertical bar. That's on your 48-inch stud walls. From that string line across to that second stud is 48 inches. Okay, once you have your location of your stud marked, it's going to be an identical process, obviously, for both of them. Get one done, move on to the next one. Also with the installation of the vertical components, left and right are going to be identical. So I'll show you guys the installation of one, speed through a quick clip of me doing the second one, and then the final installation details. But once you get your first string line up, what I like to do is take and put a piece of masking tape up there above that 7-foot mark. Come down and follow the other lines, the other dots I should say, that you've put into your studs with a piece of tape down low, also down here on my baseboard. What this is going to do is give you a vertical line to use that straight edge. I'll take my straight edge, I'll put it right along the string line, and then use a pencil and mark that vertical line from the top to the bottom, and that's going to give us a eyesight to line up the bolt holes that are on our vertical component. Once that baseboard's out and I put the unit against the wall, I'll show you a little bit more detail on that. Okay, at this point, we've got our straight line drawn that we used our plumb line and our straight edge to mark up the wall right where that stud is. Also, something that I did is because we do have a bracket that's above the 10-foot mark, I took my straight edge, made sure it was nice and parallel to it right on that line, and extended a light line up above it that we'll use for the very top bolt hole that is in our horizontal component. It's going to be that bolt hole right there. It's about 3.5 inches higher than the top, so I just extended that about 6 inches up there. One last little detail: if you are going to be doing the modification to your baseboard, the reason I'm doing it in this house is this is just about a 5-inch baseboard, 4.5-inch baseboard. That will put the bottom of the HomeStrong system up that much higher. It'll make your bottom attach point about here. It's going to be about 9 inches or 10 inches off of the floor, which for few things we find is a little bit too high. If you have a standard house with baseboards that are more like this door trim that are a couple of inches, I wouldn't bother with it at all. That much of a difference isn't going to make a difference. But when you get up into this higher baseboard, this 5-inch, a lot of homes have them even higher than that these days, it's easy enough to cut it out, and I think that it'll just improve some of the exercises, toe raises, a few things where a nice low attach point is really going to help. And the trick that I use to find the center of that stud, and the size that I want to cut out is your typical blue painter's masking tape. Happens to be just a little wider than your horizontal bars of the HomeStrong system, so it makes a pretty good guide to do a cut from. I take that, I put, if you can see it there, I put a fold right in the middle, and once I put that fold on the middle, I can use that to mark the center of it, and then tape it down. I'll come back with a straight edge and make sure that this is nice and straight, but nonetheless, that's the technique that I use. And then as you put this down, you need to put another piece of tape over it. Then you can mark the spot that you want to cut out, and that will give you just the right spacing for the cut for the baseboard. Okay, so there we have it. We have our wall marked with the vertical line, and we have our baseboard removed. One thing you'll note is that off camera, I did have to notch this just a little bit for the lowest loop hook position on the vertical bar to clear that. It's a little bit of a tight fit, just a little bit of a notch there, and it fits great. Couple things to do from this point, getting ready for the installation of the first vertical bar, is when you get the kit, you're going to receive some end caps in that kit. I'm going to receive 4 square ones and 2 round ones. The round ones go on the end of your resistance bar. They're all press fit. Just get them started and pop them right in, no problem at all. And then the other 2, or 4 rather, will go 2, 1 in each end of your horizontal bars. This keeps this edge safe from any contact, and also in the very bottom of the vertical bar. Not in the top, because your horizontal bar is going to slip fit into there. This goes into the bottom in case in the scenario that you mount it above your baseboard, nothing hits the sharp bottom edge of that middle post. And then from this point, once you get your caps put in, the bottom and the end here, what you'll do is take your horizontal bar and slip that right in. Got pretty thick powder coat, so it might take a little bit of convincing to get it in. There we go. I'm going to set the camera down, hopefully get a good shot of the rest of this. You're going to get your 2-inch bolt, your washer, and your lock nut, and then slip this through. This is one of the points where that other 3/8" drill bit might come in handy. As you saw, we have pretty thick powder coating, pretty quite tight tolerances on the unit. Sometimes once you get these 2 in, it might be easiest to run that 3/8" drill bit if you're finding that because of either a slight variation in the fit there and or that powder coating is too thick. Sometimes that makes that a little difficult. So pop that through there, put your washer and your nut on the back side. Tighten that down. Go pretty snug. Don't have to get too crazy with it. It's basically locking those two pieces together, so once it's nice and snug, it's not going anywhere. This is super rigid now. As we'll go through in some of the other instructions, you know, this is going to hold quite a bit of weight. We're probably going to have a weight tolerance on your pull-up bar somewhere around 250 pounds. But you know, it is only as strong as the base that it's mounted to. So with any exercise equipment, when you're using it, you know, use caution and common sense. Overstressing this top bar, even though it has this nice heavy flange and bolted through 4 other bolt holes in the wall, you know, somebody gets too aggressive with it and it could cause problems for you. So from this point, we're going to go ahead and get this stood up onto our wall. This is where it's great to have an extra set of hands, but in the next clip, I'm going to show you, if you're installing this by yourself, a couple of tricks I've learned along the way that are going to help the installation process be safe and not too difficult for one person. Here we go. Now we have the first bar set up against the wall. Here's my little trick for doing it by yourself. Put a couple pieces of tape across it. Put a couple pieces of tape that way. It keeps the tape from falling off because it is top heavy with that part up there. So what you're really looking for when you get this up is, hopefully we can see this, is the line through the hole. You're going to want to find that pencil mark right in the middle of the holes. Go from top to bottom and see where they're lined up. This is a little bit to the left, so I'm going to make some adjustments before I bolt it down. But basically you're going to eye those all the way to the top there, and just make sure you're darn close to center on that. And what you'll do then is take your pencil, go through and mark each of the locations. And then let's go ahead and take this bar down. Okay, now that we've got that horizontal post taken down, one thing that I always want to do, always smart to do, is measure twice, cut once. So now that we see where our bolt holes are lined up, you see they're a little off center from the line that we drew. But once again, there's some tolerance within these stud finders. Not all studs are perfectly straight, but you want to be really close. So just to verify, I always like to go back over these locations and make sure that I'm comfortable, that I'm well within where I think that 2x4 is behind the wall there. Those look good. Totally good. Even though that's off center, I'm comfortable with that. I can actually feel the ridge in the drywall on this one, and I know it's right behind there. So this one we're not really going to be able to stud find, but I'm confident that that's going down. You're also going to have a base plate down here, so there's going to be a good chunk of wood to mount in at the bottom there. So now what we'll do is we'll grab our drill. One thing you're going to see on my drill bit here, just to give myself a guide, I'll show you. So on these bolts, you're going to have a good chunk of this that goes through, and then you're going to have about this much that comes out. So in a typical drywall installation, you're going to have about a 1/2 inch of drywall, and then you want to get a pilot going into that stud for that bolt to go into. But I don't like to take the hole all the way down to the end of the threads, because then all you're holding on is this thread. I like to leave a little bit of that out so that an actual section of this bolt goes in there and grabs into all of the wood. So what you're going to see is that I have a good chunk of that that's going to go in there once that pilot's drilled. So I leave myself about 1 inch to 1.25 inches, put a piece of tape around there, and then that gives me a depth gauge as I'm drilling into the wall of how far to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get those holes drilled, then I'll stand the unit back up and we'll jump back into the video. just a quick clip here of me drilling one of the holes with that guide so you can see what I'm talking about there. Make sure that your drill is level and straight. Gone through the drywall, hitting the stud now. And stop at the tape. Okay, got the holes drilled. As you hopefully can see through there. See behind the hole is drilled, lined up. You can probably do this without having a piece of tape, but just for filming purposes, I wanted this up there. So now that you have the unit against the wall, what you're gonna get is 4 of your long lag bolts. You're gonna have a lock washer and a washer under there, and then 1 of your shorter lag bolts. This is the one that goes in the very top. So from here, what I'll usually do is take and find one of those, get this, just thread it into that drywall a little bit, hold it. Then from there, I start at the top, get that one placed, and work my way down to the bottom, getting all those tight. This is where I will either use my ratchet or this nice drive extension that goes into the end of the drill. I think that makes it a lot easier. I'll show you as that's going along. Something that I usually do right here is I don't take it super tight, especially if you have a high torque drill. The last thing you want to do is blow out the stud with those threads. So I'll take it down until there's just a little bit of play in it. Once I get them all in the wall, then I'll take my ratchet and I'll go back and I'll do that final snug, so that I know that I'm getting them just to the right point where they're good and tight. You can actually hear the drywall a little bit. Once it gets set, that's plenty. And that pretty much does the installation of your first post. Second one, mirror image of it, step by step, same. I'm gonna go ahead and do the second one off camera. I'll come back and do a couple final comments to wrap up this installation video. Okay, so there you have it. This HomeStrong system's installed. So just like I mentioned, the installation process is exactly the same as from the first side to the second side. But one thing to point out is when I was installing this one, I did notice when I dropped my plumb line from top to bottom and then I rechecked center of the stud with the stud finder, that the bottom was just about 1/4 of an inch to the left. So I wanted to make sure I was dead center in the studs. That much of a deviation isn't going to make any difference in the use of the system whatsoever. I taped the string line over the top of those middle points, drew that straight line to make sure everything was dead center. So it's all done. Please, while you're doing the installation, if you have any questions, concerns whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to support you. Give us a call, drop us a line. We greatly appreciate you purchasing the HomeStrong system and look forward to you having years of awesome use with it. Thank you so much.